So there are a lot of budget monitors out there, but I'm gonna go over why I think the FEELWORLD LUT7 is particularly interesting. Now, just to start off, FEELWORLD did send me this LUT7 unit for review, but they did not pay me. They're not reviewing this video before I post it. So all the thoughts and opinions in this video are my own. And just to go over price quickly, it's $250 for this monitor, which is a steal if you think about it, especially when I go over all the features with you. First off, build quality. This thing is entirely plastic. It's decent plastic, but it's nothing to write home about. And if you drop this guy, you are definitely gonna break it and have to buy a completely new unit. Also, this guy is thick. It's 1 inch thick, which in their marketing material and in the write-up and the product description for this monitor, they're actually kind of proud of. But for me personally, 1 inch thick is ridiculous for basically just a screen. I get it's probably cheaper to make it thicker so they don't have to make custom parts or anything. They can just use off the shelf stuff to get the price down on these monitors. But honestly, just make it a little thinner. I just want a little thinner. I get that it's a 7-inch monitor, but it can be a little thinner than this. The UI is pretty bare bones and basic and very ugly in my opinion. I do not like the way the UI looks on this monitor at all. And in the case of a monitor, which you're gonna be looking at all the time, I mean, you want it to be at least somewhat attractive. The final major thing that I do not like is that there's limited customization on this monitor. For example, this monitor supports waveforms, vector scopes, histograms, all that stuff. If you go into the menus here and you activate, let's say it says activate vector scope, you turn that on. That's it. The vector scope is up in the top right and I can't move it anywhere else. It's just, that's where it's gonna be. And it doesn't give me an option to move it somewhere else on the screen. And that's pretty much the case for all the other exposure and color assist tools on this. Like I can't make the waveforms even more opaque than that. Like that's just there. They're very obvious, they're in your face. And if I wanted to have the waveforms on the screen while I'm shooting, there's no way for me to dim that down so I can at least see through it and see my entire frame. Though if you didn't notice, it is a touchscreen. You can touch it to activate it and go through the menus. Though the touchscreen is sometimes not super responsive, but it works for the most part. I can't complain too much there. It's a budget monitor. You do have all your waveforms and vector scopes and anything else you would need for focus and color. So as you can see here, you have your RGB waveforms, you have your YUV waveforms, and of course, just your general Luma waveforms that you can use for exposure, which is super handy. And of course, you have histogram tools. This is an RGB histogram. Histograms aren't super useful for video. They don't give you an accurate description on where the highlights and the colors are within your frame. You have audio meters as well, so you can make sure your audio isn't peaking, you're clipping, or anything like that. Zebras for making sure your exposure is correct again. You got false color for the same exact thing, and it uses an airy style false color, which I'm not a fan of. But as you can see here on this bottom bar, it's not giving you the exact IRE number. It's just showing you the bar, and you kind of have to figure out where these values fall. And I know I sounded pretty negative on all those assist tools, but all those tools are actually great and super handy, and I'm glad they're in this monitor, especially at this price. I just wish you had more control on how these assist tools ended up displaying on the actual monitor itself. Of course, just like every other monitor out there, this monitor does support LUTs. So if you want to have your LUTs preloaded in on the monitor and see exactly what your end result's going to be with your footage, it does have an SD card slot, so you can plug in that and get all your LUTs off that directly. And while we're talking about ports, just take a quick break from the screen and look around the monitor to see exactly what it offers. Now, straight up top, you have your control buttons. You have function 1, 2, and 3. You can assign these to whatever specific function you want. And right here, the menu button / radio dial. This is actually by default used to adjust the screen brightness, and we'll get to the screen brightness in a minute. It's actually one of the highlighted features of this monitor that I really want you guys to know about. And you can actually press this button down to get even more assist features just ready to go in an instant. You also have this handy button on the side that you can customize to whatever you want as well. By default, it turns off touch capabilities, so you don't actually press any settings or change anything on your monitor. Underneath, we have your HDMI in and out ports. This is really great for daisy chaining monitors if you need to do that for any particular reason. Then you actually have 2 different DC power solutions here, one for 12 volts and one for 8.4 volts. So if you have different power management needs or whatever it is, you can do that. And this weirdly empty section is actually for the SDI options, the SDI inputs. This particular version does not have SDI at all, but they do sell another version of this monitor for about $100 more that comes with HDMI and SDI. And on both sides of the monitor, you actually get 1/4-20 screw holes, so you can mount this however you want. It's pretty convenient for that. And if we take a look at the back here, you can see there's actually 2 Sony MPF battery slots here, and they are hot swappable. So if you need to take one out because it's dying or whatever, the monitor stays on, no problem. And it says replace that, put it back in. We'll take out the other one. I'll turn it around just so you can see. Still powered up, still going, no problem at all. And of course, like every other monitor out there nowadays as well, you do have a headphone jack here. So if you need to monitor your audio, or if your camera does not have a headphone jack itself, you can do that through this monitor, which is very handy. One cool thing about the support tools on this monitor is it does actually support anamorphic mode. So if you have anamorphic lenses on your camera and your camera natively doesn't de-squeeze it for you, this monitor can do that for you, no problem. And if you're not using anamorphic, it just looks super weird. Oh my God. Now let's go back to the screen, the real meat of this monitor, and talk about the resolution, the sharpness, all that. The resolution of this monitor is approximately 1080p. It's a little higher than that. It's about 16 by 10 instead of 16 by 9, which is what most cameras would probably output. And it is a 7-inch monitor. I know that's a lot of people's preferred size. Myself, I actually prefer 5-inch monitors because they're a little bit more easy to manage, especially on these smaller mirrorless cameras. And the monitor itself does support 4K output. So if you're using a Sony a7 III or anything like that, it's going to support the output. And since it is a 1080p panel on a 7-inch screen, the image is extremely sharp. It's really nice and clear. I really enjoy that about these monitors. Even these budget monitors, they have really beautiful screens. And FEELWORLD actually calibrates all the screens in the factory before they ship them out. So the image quality and the colors should be fairly accurate to what you're going to see on your computer screen, which is nice. But finally, the most important and the most significant feature of this budget-friendly 7-inch 1080p screen is that it's 2200 nits of brightness. That is extremely bright. That is ridiculously bright. I primarily use the Ninja 5, like I said earlier, and that thing is about $600. It does have a built-in recorder, but it still only tops out at about 1000 nits of brightness. This is over twice as bright. My biggest complaint with all these monitors, I get why they do this, but they always use a reflective screen. Reflective screens typically give you better colors. It just looks more vibrant, more nice. When you're using them out in the sun, like something like this would be used for, you're gonna get so much glare that even though it's super bright, you're still gonna have some stuff distracting you. And that's really just a shame. I wish they at least had offered a matte screen version or something like that. Maybe included a matte screen protector in the box. This actually does have a screen protector pre-installed, which is great. I love that, but again, it's a reflective screen protector on top of a reflective screen. It's not going to do me much good in the end if I'm using this out in the sun. Just to give you a quick example, in my studio, this is at 1% brightness here, and I can turn it all the way up. That is at 100% brightness and is completely blown out on my overhead camera. So brightness wise, it's fantastic. I just wish we had other options besides a reflective screen. Now, beyond the monitor, inside the box, you're also going to get this very nice mounting arm. I love this. They 100% ripped this off of Small HD with their focus line, but I love it. I'm glad they did. This is fantastic. These are my favorite way to mount monitors. And they also included this combo HDMI cable. So you have mini HDMI to micro HDMI. So all in all, do I think the FEELWORLD LUT7 is the ultimate budget monitor that pretty much everyone should buy? I'd say, I mean, that really depends on you. Again, personally, I do not like 7-inch monitors. I prefer 5-inch monitors. I like the more compact form factor. If you're someone who's gonna be shooting in the sunlight all the time, non-stop, and you just need a monitor that's big enough to see everything, this 1080p, supports 4K output, supports LUTs, has all your sys tools, all that stuff, and is hella bright, this is definitely a hard monitor to beat. So while I don't like everything about this guy, I think for the price, a lot of those negatives can be overlooked. Now, if you're considering picking up the FEELWORLD LUT7, let me know in the comments down below. Or if you know of another better, higher quality, lower price budget monitor out there that I should take a look at, please let me know that as well. And if you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing. It really means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. But as always, my name is Joshua Munoz. Stay sexy, and I'll see you sometime.